And welcome back to American Agenda. Allison, I just wanted to take a moment and just point out, as we were coming on the air today, the Department of Justice was holding a press conference with the Attorney General coming out and talking about some of the efforts they have to combat a lot of what's going on across the country. We've seen a lot of these demonstrations, some of them termed violent. Not all the people are involved with that, but there are enough people involved that it gets your attention. They're doing serious damage, and we've seen it in New York City as well as Washington and other cities, L.A., Oakland. We've seen that. And the Attorney General Barr was talking about how there are situations in which Antifa looks to be hijacking those efforts of what normally might be peaceful demonstrations, but then they put their claws into them, and what comes out of it is something more negative. I don't know whether that's to preface some sort of efforts from the federal government, but they definitely want to make those resources available from the federal government and to combat any efforts like that. And I suspect we will see more on this as we go on because, look, we've had arrests, but the protests continue, right? So you have to wonder, where's this going? And if it's not to destroy and loot and all the rest. There have to be steps taken to stop all that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we'll hear more from them in the coming days or so about that. And speaking of the riots, you know, a lot of these businesses finally being able to open up, but now they have rioting and looting. And so is that going to affect them? It's already a struggling economy. So will this set things back even further? Let's welcome in our A-plus panel for the day, editor-in-chief of the personal finance website, hermoney.com, Catherine Tuggle. Also with us is former director of the SEC's Division of Investment Management and author of Mastering Money, Norm Champ. Thank you so much for joining us. Catherine, I want to start with you. These businesses have been struggling. Unemployment rates are up, and now we have this rioting that's affected a lot of small businesses. Are we going back now farther?
Well, it's impossible to say how badly small business owners will be impacted. If you do have a storefront that has been looted and damaged during this time, is this going to be the end for you, right? Because if you were already struggling pre-pandemic and now you've lost revenue or had no revenue for 3 months due to the coronavirus, is that $1,000 deductible that you were going to have to pay to get your windows repaired, is that going to break you? And I think it's really hard to say at this point, but I think in the coming weeks we'll find out more.
Norm, it seems like Wall Street, the stock prices seem to have done so well that they're pricing in a V-shaped recovery. Everything's going to be okay. But then you get another almost 2 million people filing for unemployment. What's the reality? What should we be looking for as a recovery?
So we did see another almost 2 million on unemployment claims. However, it's down again. So we do seem to be going the right way on the unemployment numbers. And I think what you're seeing in the markets, it's the usual thing in the stock market. Stock market tends to look around 6 months out. So I do think the market is pricing into this that we are going to get a strong recovery. You know, remember in February, the economy was humming along, record unemployment, record low unemployment. And so the markets are pricing in a rapid recovery. Now, we'll have to see how that plays out and whether, I think the biggest thing I'm concerned about is whether it's going to be an uneven recovery. I think that we've got different segments of the economy that are going to have a harder time coming out of this, large events, sporting events, all those things. Other segments of the economy that it seems like reopening is going well and that we should get a recovery in those sectors.
Yeah, Catherine, I know a lot of states obviously reopening, some still in phase one, where a lot of the restaurants can't even open up, and a lot of the PPP money that they got is gone. Do you think that, forget the riots, but do you think that this is going to affect businesses, even if they can open up partially?
I mean, there was an interesting survey out from Bankrate this week that says that in a year from now, unemployment is expected to be hovering at around 10%. Now, that's better than what we're projected to hit tomorrow, which is 20%, but it's still obviously nowhere near the half-century low of 3.5% that we were enjoying pre-pandemic. So I think during these times, it's important to remember that it took 8 years for joblessness to recover after the Great Recession. So we're headed for uncharted territory, and it's going to be a slow recovery. But again, once companies and businesses are able to start opening up, I'm going to be more encouraged.
Norm, there are some people who think that we need another stimulus bill or whatever you want to call it, a relief bill. Among the ideas, the Republicans are floating $450 as a bonus to go back to work. Would you favor something like that as opposed to paying people to stay at home?
So one of the very difficult parts of the original stimulus was the extra money for unemployment, which unfortunately that is an incentive to stay home, as you point out. So if we could come up with some policy ideas in order to get people off the sidelines and back to work, and I think, that's the ultimate point. I think the federal government is very committed to getting the economy restarted, and we've got to get some policy measures to do that. And to policy measures in this case, and it's going to be important to get incentives for get people back to work.
Yeah, I think everybody's got their fingers crossed that this goes well. Norm Champ, Catherine Tuggle, thank you so much for joining us. We'll have more on the spreading violence in America after this.